Okay, very good morning, everyone. Welcome to Southeast Asia Economies and Business Economics here at the International Business Studies Network, or IBSN. Today, Group 1 will do a presentation on Indonesia's G20 presidency in 2022 and how Indonesia can contribute to the future of Southeast Asia economies. Caroline, Marisa, and Justice from Group 1, you have about 30 minutes for a presentation, and then we're going to have a Q&A session. All right, without further ado, please welcome Group 1. And Group 1, please share your presentation file, and you can start your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for the nice introduction of our group. So good morning, everyone. We, Caroline, Justice, and I welcome you today to our presentation entitled Indonesia's G20 Presidency and the Future of Southeast Asia. But first, let's take a look at the agenda of today's presentation. That is what you can expect the next half hour. So first of all, I will briefly introduce the topic of the G20, and then I will show you the members of the G20. This year, the meeting will take place in Indonesia, and Caroline will tell you more about that. This means, on the one hand, the Indonesian presidency, and on the other hand, the topics to be discussed there in the meeting. Last but not least, Justice will give an introduction about the economy of Southeast Asia and end the presentation with an outlook. So let's start with the introduction and with the question, why was G20 set up? In 1997, several East Asian countries were under the threat of economic crisis. So the currency lost its value, the companies went bankrupt, and many people lost their jobs or they invested money. So other countries also seem to be facing threats at this time, and the concern was great, and therefore in 1998, there was a crisis meeting in the USA in which 22 nations participated. This meeting was one of the milestones on the way to the foundation of the G20 in December 1999. Another important year for the G20 was the year 2008, when the finance minister and also the central bank governors once again met to exchange views. At the same time, however, a major financial crisis was beginning to affect the world. And in order to get the crisis under control, the heads of the governments and also the states come together and raise the G20 to the highest political level. And together they decided on an important financial reform to overcome the crisis. And today the meetings take place once or twice a year, and besides the head of states and also their representatives and various ministers and also the economic organizations, such, for example, the World Health Organization and other national representatives sit then around the table at this meeting. And the president of the country that is hosting the G20 meeting decides which guests are allowed to attend, and the president also selects the content of the meeting. So the letter G stands for group, and the 20 stands for the 90 most important industrial and emerging countries, plus the European Union. And the G20 is not an organization, but an informal council. This means that they cannot directly pass laws, but they can provide input for changes. And so after the meetings, each country is responsible for implementing these decisions and passing laws then. And if a country does not comply with the goals agreed upon at a meeting, there are no official sanctions. So on the next slide is, yeah, perfect, is then what is meant by most important industrial and emerging countries. Together, the G20 represent 2/3 of the world's population and also more than 4/5 of the world's GDP and 3/4 of the global trade. So these states are a powerful share in the global economy and also the trade. But what is the goal? of G20. In the beginning, these meetings were basically about improving economic cooperation. However, a look at the resolution of the recent year shows that the focus of these meetings has expanded. As a result, in addition to economic and financial issues, other topics are now on the agenda, such as climate and also energy, nutrition, health, and also social issues. And the G20's ongoing goal is to tackle the crisis in the world and also avoid further crisis then. So I've been talking about the G20 the whole time, but now the question arises who the G20 is. So the group of 20 includes the 90 most important industrial and emerging countries, as well as the European Union. And the industrial states have a strong economies, and the emerging countries' economies are on the way to become the industrial nation. On a map, you can see here now the G20 nations. Here I will not list all the countries separately. Indonesia is the only nation representing Southeast Asia and was selected due to some factors such as, for example, the size of the population and also its economy. So more information now from Caroline about Indonesia and this year's G20 meeting. So I hand over to Caroline. Caro, we didn't hear you. I think you are mute.
Oh, okay, sorry. So first of all, I want to answer the questions, why does Indonesia hold the presidency? So the G20 presidency rotates annually among its members. And after Italy, Indonesia took over the presidency in 2022. And the country that holds the presidency is working together with its predecessors and successors, also known as Troika, to ensure the continuity of the agenda. So currently, Italy, Indonesia, and India are the Troika countries that are working together because Italy was the president in 2021 and India hold the presidency in 2023. And because of that, the meeting is scheduled to take place in Bali. Okay, now I want to head over the next slide and explain more about the topics of the G20 Summit 2022 and answer the questions, which issues are the focus of the G20. So first of all, I want to explain the several goals that the G20 pursue, and the G20 has some basic goals that can be divided into 3 different categories. The first category is building resilience. So this includes, for example, strengthening the world economy, reforming the international finance markets, and improving employment. The next category is improving sustainability, and this includes energy and climate, environment, and also digitization. In particular, this need for functioning and transparent energy markets and the continuous improvement of energy efficiency for sustainable growth are called for. And the last category is assuming responsibility. So this includes the partnership with Africa, the fight against terrorism and against corruption, and this also includes the empowerment of women in the labor market, and also the reduction of gender-specific differences. And after the outbreak of Ebola fever in several West African countries, with devastating consequences, global healthcare also became a central item of the agenda. The island nation set up its presidency under the motto, recover together, recover stronger, and also emphasizes that no one should left behind. Indonesia gives major attention to developing countries in Asia, Africa, and also South America. It has contributed some constructive measures to make the G20 work, not only for developed, but also for developing countries. And it could also develop the understanding in seeing and treating the developing countries as equal partners for global cooperation. And therefore, Indonesia is bringing the voice of ASEAN, while the leaders of ASEAN members countries gave support to Indonesia as a representative from Southeast Asia. And today, the world needs this cooperation more than ever, as the global pandemic has impacted every aspect of our society, starting from health to education, but also to international trading. And aware of these challenges, Indonesia will focus on 3 main points in 2022. The first one is global health architecture, sustainable energy transition, and the digital transformation. And under these 3 pillars, Indonesia will ensure the access to COVID-19 vaccines, promoting sustainable and inclusive economic development and the digital economy. So first of all, I want to talk about the global health architecture. So as Indonesia holds the presidency, the minister believed that it is able to create a health system that can help further generations become more resilient to pandemics. And this is by transforming the health infrastructure. So there's also an idea of establishment of a World Health Bank for global security health. And therefore, they have to ensure parity in global health standards. Indonesia will also promote the strengthening of the global health system that is more comprehensive, equitable, and resilient to crisis. And discussing these global health architecture issues will be the focus of a series of meetings during 2022. Another fundamental goal is to tap the true potential of the rapid digitization. So digital transformation is one of the most crucial factors changing modern human life, from steam engines, electronic machinery, digital computers, and artificial intelligence. So digital transforming reduces the cost of sharing information, leading to heavy changes in what and also how we trade things. And therefore, they are restoring a stronger, inclusive, and collaborative global economic order. So directly on the agenda is to create a more inclusive digital transformation in the world. The next and last pillar is sustainable energy transition. And here the need to accelerate the transition to clean energy sources is made clear. So because of the impact of the climate change are becoming more and more real and are also beginning to affect local as well as global development, climate change is one of the most important global, but also long tail risks this generation has to face. So addressing sustainability and resilience is a must. The energy transition will involve a variety of technologies, including renewables such as solar and wind. And therefore, all G20 members have a huge responsibility in ensuring optimal energy sustainability to reduce energy-related CO2 emissions due to limited climate change. Okay, so these were all the topics of the meeting of the G20 in 2022. And now Justice is going to tell you more about the Southeast Asian economies and the future of Southeast Asia. But first of all, we want to show you this video.
Caro, we can't hear the video. I can try it.
What is ASEAN? The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN for short, is an association that today consists of 10 Southeast Asian states. In 1967, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines and Singapore founded ASEAN. The aim was to improve economic, political and social cooperation, and also to balance political conflicts between these countries that existed as a consequence of decolonization. During Cold War, ASEAN members wanted to contain the influence of communism in the region. Times changed. Old enemies became new partners, and in the second half of the 1990s, Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar and Cambodia joined ASEAN. The collapse of the USSR, the founding of the World Trade Organization, and a financial crisis in Asia prompted members to deepen their relations and adapt to the new situation. In the 2000s, free trade agreements were concluded with India, China, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. In the future, the entire region will be merged into one large free trade zone. Since 2001, the ASEAN Summit takes place annually. It is a meeting of the heads of state and government where current problems are discussed and solutions are worked out. In 2008, the ASEAN Charter came into force, giving the association the status of a legal person. Principles of non-intervention and consensual decision-taking remained unchanged by the Charter. Decisions are generally made by consensus. No member can be forced to something. As a result, the group rarely appears to be closed. Nowadays, to assure peace, as an economic community with a strong domestic market, and as a social and cultural community, including a common identity. Challenges and solutions. ASEAN faces a number of social and environmental challenges. Countries such as Vietnam or the Philippines are particularly vulnerable to climate change and already feel its impact today. Problem: co-production. Nevertheless, member states plan to meet the energy demand by making primarily use of climate-damaging coal. Indonesia plans to build 170 new coal-fired power plants by 2025. Myanmar invests in gigantic hydroelectric power plant in coal. Laos builds dams on Mekong. The result is that Vietnam loses water in the Mekong Delta. However, fossil fuels, for example, are not necessary to cover the lack of energy. Renewable energy sources ranging from biomass to solar energy and wind power have enormous potentials in the region. They too would promote the local economy and provide sustainable jobs. Problem: the haze. Large areas of precious rainforest are burnt down for palm oil plantations and cattle feed cultivation all over Indonesia. The smog of these fires covers large parts of Indonesia, Singapore, and Malaysia. Pollution continues, even though in 2003 a smog agreement in the ASEAN came into force, which should reduce forest fires, environmental degradation, and air pollution. As such problems cross borders, ASEAN must tackle them in a joint effort and think beyond borders. This can be done, for example, by taking up the suggestions made by CSOs, civil society organizations, aiming at installing a fourth pillar, the environmental pillar. It must ensure that the ecological limits are taken into account in the growth debate. Only in case civil society is informed transparently and gets much more involved, acting free from state repression, social and environmental justice can rise. Serve people rather than profit.
Now we come to the sub-item Southeast Asia. There are 11 countries in Southeast Asia, including Brunei, Indonesia, Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, East Timor, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. Indonesia is the most populous country in Southeast Asia, and it is followed by the Philippines. Most Southeast Asian countries are emerging markets. As a result, they represent important markets for companies, for foreign investments, countries due to high economic growth and high consumption. Now we come to the Southeast Asia future. It's a very large consumer market, so there are 640 million total inhabitants. As of this year, it is predicted that the states will generate over 5% economic growth every year. This could make SEA the 5th largest economy in the world. At the present time, the 5th largest economies are Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, and the Philippines. They account 85% of GDP in Southeast Asia. Each country has different levels of development. Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar are currently not as advanced and can only create an advantage for foreign investors with low wages. There are for sure some investment risks in SEA, like corruption and no stable exchange rates. There will be a major demographic change. In Southeast Asia, there will be a large increase in the population and in the age structure. There will be an overrate of people, and especially of old people. Thus, the labor market will be very restricted and minimized. Through digital technologies such as robots and the automation of production, the economic situation in countries can be balanced. Another important point is the environmental impact, including climate change, because it continues to play a significant role. According to studies, the Southeast Asia region is most affected by climate change. This has a negative impact on the economic situation. The resulting smoke from forest fires, like in Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore, shows how far-reaching climate change can be. On the next slide, I would like to tell how SEA is affected by digital technologies. Workers are being displaced by them. However, this is a normal process, as the primary sector has also been displaced by the secondary sector. Digitalization is likely to displace workers faster than they would otherwise be displaced by change, but it will also create new jobs. It is unlikely that the digitalization will change every industry so deep that there will be no room for labor-intensive goods. For example, the textile industry is very labor intensive. On the next slide, we see how state government will get involved into the future in the SEA. Governments wants to attract foreign investors and make their country more attractive to them, and provides public goods like infrastructure, education, and research and development. The governments in SEA are currently trying to fight corruption, and the Southeast Asia region has a good track record of overcoming problems. So that was our presentation. Thank you for your attention.
All right. Thank you for your presentation. That was excellent. Now we are in question and answer session. Is there any questions to group one from other groups? Any questions to group one? While waiting for your questions, allow me to ask you a few questions. Group one, well, in your presentation, you mentioned that one of the G20 meeting concerns in 2022 would be a sustainable energy transition, right? My question is, how can Indonesia play an important role in promoting sustainable energy, at least in the Southeast Asia region, beyond the transition period? What do you think, Group One?
Maybe cooperate with other countries. I think free trade agreements are important for Indonesia.
Right.
I think they can also switch on sustainability energy in exactly the same way.
Yeah. Well, coal is considered. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I completely agree.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, coal mining industry once again is considered, not sustainable.
Highly CO2
Polluted.
emissions.
Right. I think we are having internet connection problem here. Right. Okay. I appreciate your response. Yeah, the challenge that Indonesia and some coal exporters is that coal industry is considered unsustainable industry. They contribute to pollution and so on and so forth. So that I think what Indonesia and some key players in coal industry can do is that they have to show sustainable practice, right? By having a certification certifying that they produce coal in a good way so that they can convince that coal is still potential for energy source, much better in quality than in the past, right? So beyond the transition period, when every country already use more sustainable energy, the coal industry remains exist by following international standards of coal production. So coal industry contributes less to pollution and less contributes to the climate change and so on. Right. Thank you, Group One. While waiting for your questions, another point that you made. Okay, another point that you made in your presentation was about digital transformation, right? Do you think Southeast Asia countries can only be a market for this digitalization, or do you think they can be also key players? and
I-
how? Yeah.
I
Yes,
think
please.
it depends on the market. For example, India is very good in digital technologies, but I think Indonesia has the focus on other industries.
Mhm. Right. And to be key players in the digitalized world, what do you think Indonesia and the rest of Southeast Asia countries should prepare?
Yeah, I think every country can be a key player, so also Indonesia. I think building up the know-how, especially in direction of education, is very important. For example, more software engineers or something like that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so it is not a matter of the number of population, but also the quality of the population. So yeah, yeah, the human development index. When we look at the human development index of Southeast Asia countries, when we compare to East Asia countries, for example, China, Japan, and so on, Korea, yeah, South Korea. Yeah, on average, our human development index lower than East Asia countries, for example. So yeah, you're right. Education is one of the strategies that should be a concern of Southeast Asia countries, how they improve the quality of education so that they can be players in the digital world, right? I do agree with you. Right. We are waiting for question from groups 2, 3, 4, 5.
I think
Any
also
question?
they have then the market around.
Yes. What is it? All right. Questions from other groups, please. Okay, I think one more question from me. I hope after this we can see more questions from your friends.
More question about the coal industry.
Yeah. Do you think ASEAN can have a single currency like the EU has? Do you think one day Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and the rest of ASEAN countries can have euro-like currency in ASEAN? What do you think?
I think it would be as it would have a lot of advantages. For example, there wouldn't be any currency exchange fees, and there would also be a better flow of trade. But of course, the economic condition of each country is different, so it's pretty hard to do that.
Mhm.
The advantages. So I think it's makes doing business in easier and also cheaper and less risky. Yeah, I'm not so deep into the subject now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you mentioned about some advantages, but in the context of EU, you know, most of EU countries, they have quite similar economic performance. But when we are talking about Southeast Asia, ASEAN countries, there's Singapore, quite a modern country in Southeast Asia. And then we have like Malaysia, Indonesia. Let's say it's medium size countries in Southeast Asia. And then we have a bit lower like Laos, Cambodia, and so on. So we have, you know, we have a range of economic size. So when we are talking about the readiness of ASEAN to have a single currency, the size of the economy varies one country to another country. That is the disadvantage. Yeah.
Yeah, I think also a disadvantage is in Europe that the taxpayers within the Europe member states, for example, are responsible for the debts of the crisis countries also.
Right. Yes. Yes. I do agree with you. Right. Excellent. Hopefully some questions from your friends. Any question? Group one, thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate your presentation and your response to my questions. And for everyone, thank you for joining the class. We had a hybrid class today. It worked quite well. Hopefully
Yeah,
next time it works well as well. Okay, thank you again. Take care,
perfect. Thank you
everyone.
very much.
Bye now.
Have a nice
Take
day.
care. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.